Days went by, and every Wednesday and Friday night it happened again. Kokoma would find herself getting up, her feet moving on their own, joining a line of her roommates as they go out of the hostel in silence. No matter how hard she tried to fight it, her body wouldn't listen. They always ended up at that old twisted tree that seemed to whisper secrets to the dark, and each time, Kokoma would see strange things that frightened her. And then came the missions. Ms. Matilda started giving Kokoma strange tasks, each one stranger than the last. One night she called Kokoma over, her voice low and cold. She said, "I need you to bring me a used sanitary pad from any girl in the hostel." Kokoma stared at her in horror. But Miss Matilda, why do you need that?" Miss Matilda's eyes narrowed. "Don't ask questions, Kokoma. Just do as you're told." She nodded, swallowing her fear. She knew she couldn't say no. Another time Miss Matilda ordered, "Bring me a strand of hair from a brush. Any brush. Get me 3 toothbrushes and 3 sponges from different seniors that bullied you," she demanded. Kokoma's heart sank as she realized what she was being forced to do. These are not harmless tasks. These are evil missions, dark and twisted, but I can't say no, she thought, trembling as fear gripped her. They'll harm me if I refuse. One day, Kokoma gathered the courage to ask her roommate, "Why are we doing these things? What does it all mean?" The girl looked down at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. "We don't ask questions here," she replied. "Just do what you're told." Fridays were the worst. On those nights, the senior girls would still dress up in ways that shocked Kokoma, wearing skimpy dresses, high heels, and thick, heavy makeup, wigs that made them look older than they really were. They looked like they were going to a party, but Kokoma knew it wasn't a regular party. They would go out of school mysteriously, and Miss Matilda would sometimes take some of them away herself. Kokoma's mind raced with questions every night as she watched them go out of the school compound. He had a bad feeling about it all. One night, as the seniors went out into the dark on their mission, her heart raced as she realized the horrible truth, her eyes wide with fear. Ms. Matilda and Ms. Agatha aren't just witches. They're sending the girls to be with men, as a weapon of destruction to steal their destinies. Kokoma shuddered, her heart pounding. This school, it's a trap, she thought, horrified. They are using us to do evil things, and no one even knows. Kokoma became more eager to know what really happened to her friend, Teray. Days went by, and one day Kokoma asked Sharon, her school mother, "Do you know a girl named Teray?" The moment she mentioned the name, her school mother's eyes widened as her face went pale. She grabbed Kokoma's arm tightly, pulling her to a quiet corner. "If you want to stay alive, don't you ever mention that name again," she whispered harshly, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you hear me?" Kokoma's heart sank as she looked into her Sharon's frightened face. She knew in that moment that she was trapped in something terrible, something dark that went far deeper than she could imagine. "They've made me one of them, and there's no way out," she thought, feeling a chill wash over her. As the days passed, she felt sick as more secrets unraveled. She noticed more and more strange things. Some girls would disappear for a few days and then come back looking tired and worn out, and some even with bruises. They were all chosen by Ms. Matilda and Ms. Agatha, chosen to serve their dark, twisted purposes. She clutched her hands together, trying to keep herself from crying. She whispered to herself, "I have to be brave. I have to find a way out of this." But she knew deep down that escaping St. Quinta's wouldn't be easy, and she was running out of time. Kokoma's heart ached every time she thought about Teray. Teray had been her friend, kind and sweet, and it was hard to imagine what could have happened to her. But she was determined to find out. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. One afternoon on the field, she finally found the courage to ask her Sharon again, "Please, what happened to Teray? I need to know." Sharon, who seemed tired and worn down, sighed deeply, glancing around to make sure no one was listening as she told her bits in whisper. "Teray was my friend. She got caught doing something bad. Really bad. She was forced into everything just like everyone in this room," Sharon said, her eyes full of fear. "She didn't want to be part of their dark plans. But once they chose her, there was no escape." "What did they make her do?" Kokoma's heart started to pound as she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sharon sighed. "They forced her to do horrible things. She was initiated just like us. But it was worse for her when she went on her third mission outside the school and failed. She had fallen deeply for her prey and she let him escape out of pity. They found out about it and they asked her to make a big sacrifice as a punishment and a warning to the rest of us." "A sacrifice?" Kokoma asked, her voice trembling. "What did they want her to do?" "They wanted her to sacrifice her only brother's sanity, to make him mad and useless." Sharon's face was full of pain as she spoke. Kokoma's eyes widened. Her brother? Why would they want her to do that? Teray loved her brother more than anything. But they demanded she sacrifice him as a replacement for the soul she lost and also to prove her loyalty to them, Sharon explained, sadness in her eyes. Teray refused. She couldn't do it. Kokoma felt a surge of sadness and anger. How could they be so cruel? She thought. She knew how it felt to care for someone deeply, even if she had no siblings. Her heart ached for Teray and what she must have gone through. Teray tried to get help, Sharon continued. She tried to talk to her parents to tell them some of the strange things happening here. But they didn't listen to her. They thought she was just trying to leave the school. When she begged them not to send her back, they promised to withdraw her out, but only after the session ended. "So they sent her back here," Kokoma whispered, understanding how trapped Teray must have felt. "Yes. And when she returned, Ms. Matilda and Ms. Agatha found out what she tried to do. They knew she tried to tell her parents. They were angry. Really angry. They said Teray had broken the oaths she took and tried to expose them. They forced her to write a letter to her parents," Sharon continued, her voice dropping to a barely audible whisper. "They made it look like she was seeing a boy. They put fake love letters in her bag and even a picture of some boy she didn't know, to make it look real." Kokoma's eyes widened in horror. Why would they do that? "To make her parents think she ran away with a boy," her Sharon replied. "So her parents wouldn't suspect the school, and no one would blame Ms. Matilda or Ms. Agatha for anything that happened." A tear slipping down her cheek. "So that when her parents got the letter, they would be heartbroken and confused. They would search for her for a while, but with all those fake things, they would believe that she was in trouble because of her own choices. They made sure her parents would feel ashamed, so they would stop asking questions." Kokoma felt a chill go down her spine. "So, did her parents come back to look for her again?" "They did," Sharon whispered, her voice filled with sadness. "Her mother came back asking questions, but after a while she stopped. Maybe they believed the lies. And after that, Teray was gone. They had silenced her forever." Sharon looked away, her voice breaking. Kokoma covered her mouth, trying to hold back her tears. She felt sick. Teray was gone and no one would ever know the truth. Her friend had been taken, silenced, all because she tried to escape their evil plans. "Kokoma, that's why you have to be careful and stop asking questions about Teray or anyone else. They'll do the same thing to you if you're not careful. I don't want to lose another friend," Kokoma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her fear. She knew she was in more danger than ever before. But she also knew one thing. She had to stay strong and find a way out before it was too late. She whispered, "I will to be careful." Kokoma saw students innocently playing under the big tree in the playground, and it gave her a bad feeling. It was not just any tree. It was tied to the horrific, strange, and evil things happening at the school. Could even almost feel it watching her. As she walked to the canteen, she overheard a gardener grumbling about being scolded for cutting branches off the tree. He had trimmed off a few large branches and was almost sacked, but the very next day, the tree looked just the same, as if it had never been touched. "Did you just cut those branches this week?" Kokoma asked the gardener, trying not to sound too curious. The gardener scratched his head, looking confused. "I did. I don't know what kind of tree this is, but I don't think it's normal. I shouldn't have wasted my energy in trimming it before," he said. Kokoma's heart skipped a beat. She remembered Miss Agatha and Miss Matilda fell mysteriously ill this week, but they were perfectly fine again after a day like nothing happened. Kokoma couldn't eat her meal. She sat in the canteen, praying for the school break to come soon. She knew she had to tell her parents, but how? Would they even believe her? The school holidays came and Kokoma's parents came to pick her up. But instead of feeling happy, she felt a strange fear in her heart. Before leaving, Miss Matilda gave her a strange mission. "Bring something that belongs to your father when you return," she said, smiling eerily. "His clothes or a tie will do." Kokoma felt sick as the holidays went by. She grew more anxious. Few days left to resume school and she couldn't eat or sleep well, and her family noticed something was wrong. "Kokoma, what's the matter?" her mother, Somto, asked, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're not yourself. Are you feeling all right?" Kokoma looked at her mother, her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to tell them everything but was afraid they wouldn't believe her, just like Teresa's parents. But she knew she couldn't keep it inside anymore. "Mom, Dad, please listen to me," she said, her voice trembling. "Something strange is happening at school. I need your help." Her parents exchanged worried glances. "Tell us everything, dear," Paul said gently. Kokoma took a deep breath and told them everything. About Teresa's disappearance, her real reason for attending St Quinta's, the strange tree, Miss Agatha and Miss Matilda's witchcraft meetings, her initiation and the terrible things happening to students like Tare, and how she was asked to bring her father's clothes or tie to school for some unknown reason. Her parents listened in shock. Somto's eyes were full of tears while Paul looked as if he had seen a ghost. He has handled cases like this several times, but who would have thought his own daughter would be a victim? "We've been having dreams about you," Somto admitted, holding her hand tightly, crying. "But we thought it was just our worry because it was your first time away from home, and when I called your school to fix a date to come see you, they declined, saying visitation days were over. We didn't want to use our influence, so we just prayed about it." Kokoma begged them not to send her back. "Please, we have to do something. We can't let those women keep hurting people." Paul hugged her tightly. "Don't worry, Kokoma. You did the right thing telling us, my dear. We are going to get you out of that school." 3 days after school resumed, Kokoma's fears grew as she returned to school with her parents, knowing something was horribly wrong. But they were not alone. Her parents, shaken by her confession, had sought out some spiritual leaders known for dealing with dark forces and some government officials too. They were ready and determined to confront the darkness and evil that lay hidden within the walls of the St Quintas. Before returning to school, they warned Kokoma, "You must be strong. Evil will try to break you, to pull you into its darkness. But remember, fear is what gives it strength." Kokoma nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling of dread. When they arrived at the school, they found Agatha and Matilda waiting for them. The wind picked up, swirling around them. The men of God started praying, their voices rising loudly in unison, ringing through the schoolyard. One of the men stepped forward. "We demand you reveal yourselves." Suddenly, Agatha and Matilda appeared, their faces twisted in anger and their eyes gleamed with a cold, inhuman stare. Agatha sneered, her voice cold. "Do you really think you can fight us? We have lived for centuries. We have powers beyond what you can imagine, and we are not leaving now." Matilda added with a chilling laugh, "You don't know who we really are, do you? We were once innocent choir girls, pure and kind. But a wicked pastor betrayed us, and our lives ended in misery. We were buried together, and a growing root was placed in our grave. That pastor thought he could silence us, but we became stronger." Agatha and Matilda were innocent sisters who sang in the church choir. But their pastor betrayed them, defiling and using them to gain more power, and he killed them. He spread lies to their parents and twisted their lives with his deceit. The pastor then convinced their grieving parents to bury them with a special root he gave them. He claimed it would help their spirits get justice and find peace. But what the parents didn't know was that the root would bind their daughters' spirits, making them roam far from him and stopping them from finding peace. The sisters' restless souls wandered until they found a place to settle, with the aid of an old witch who knew dark magic. She helped them plant the root, giving them a way to come back to life. With the witch's help, they gained the powers they needed to seek vengeance on pastors, using their daughters to destroy innocent souls and ruin lives. Every victim they initiated was the daughter of a pastor, as the sisters sought to spread their pain across many families. Paul stepped forward. "Your powers are nothing compared to the light of truth." Paul said, "Let these children go." Matilda laughed, her voice sharp and hollow. "These girls are our revenge," Agatha hissed. "Their fathers are pastors just like the one who ruined us. We use their daughters to make them suffer." The crowd gasped as Agatha and Matilda revealed their anger and bitterness. The pastors continued praying. Kokoma clung to her mother as the confrontation grew tense. Suddenly, Miss Agatha and Matilda's face twisted into a terrifying, monstrous form. Their eyes glowed red and shadows began swirling around her. "You think you can destroy us?" Agatha sneered, pointing at Kokoma. "You are nothing but a little girl." At that moment, she felt a presence beside her. As Kokoma held her mom tightly, her heart started pounding fast. It felt like the shadows was trying to grab her, whispering her name. All she kept hearing was, "Kokoma, you can't escape that you belong to us now." And as she started screaming to get the voice off her head, she could still hear the voices, sounding distant as if searching for her. Meanwhile, the gardener noticed the spiritual battle going on from afar. He was a man on a mission looking for answers. His sister went missing mysteriously in school after she tried to seduce him during the holiday but failed, and he disguised himself as a gardener to come find answers. And while working in the school, he noticed the strange incident with the big tree, how it grew back mysteriously. So when he saw the spiritual battle going on as he walked through the school gate, it all made sense to him. Immediately he swung into action. He ran to the room where he stored his tools and ran back to the school playground at the opposite end of where the spiritual battle was happening. The tree loomed over him, its branches curling and twisting as if alive. With his electric tree cutter, he said a prayer and started cutting the tree. Immediately the evil sisters, Matilda and Agatha, started screaming, but they couldn't step an inch to help themselves. Their faces started changing to different forms of beautiful ladies as they screamed, trying to hold on to their powers. As the voices of the spiritual leaders and Paul rose in harmony with prayers, the gardener continued cutting till a part of the tree fell and the air around them crackled with energy, and the tree began to shake violently as if trying to resist. The gardener ran as fast as his legs could carry him far away from the tree. The bark split open and from within a blinding light burst forth. Agatha and Matilda screamed, their faces contorting in pain as the light grew stronger. The last thing Kokoma saw was the twisted faces of Agatha and Matilda as they dissolved into sand, sinking into the earth, never to rise again, their screams echoing into the air. Then everything went silent. A wave of relief washed over the schoolyard. The heavy feeling of darkness lifted, and the students who had been held under the strange influence suddenly looked around in confusion. It was as if they had just woken up from a bad dream. When Kokoma woke up, everywhere was quiet, very quiet. Her mom was by her side, hugging her tightly. "It's over, my baby," Somto whispered. "You're safe now." Kokoma looked around, dazed, as the memories of the battle came rushing back. One by one, the girls began to realize they were free. They hugged each other, tears streaming down their faces, relieved that the nightmare was finally over. One of the men turned to the crowd, his voice filled with joy. "The evil has been defeated. Let us give thanks for this victory." Kokoma and the other students stood before the pastors as they prayed, lifting their hands and voices to protect them. After a long deliverance session, the children's parents were invited to take them home. Kokoma felt a deep sense of peace as her parents held her close. The government officials ordered the school to be shut down immediately, announcing that it is no longer a safe place for children, and it will be turned into a memorial ground to honor all the innocent souls who suffered here. As they left the school, Kokoma held her parents' hands tightly, feeling both sad and relieved, scarred by the ordeal. She knew she'd never forget St. Quinta's, but she was grateful to be free. "Goodbye, Trey. I hope you're at peace now," she whispered. Kokoma silently promised to always trust her instincts and never let her curiosity lead her into darkness again. Her parents, still shaken but relieved, held her hands tightly as they left the school grounds. They had almost lost their only child. They knew that the memories of what she had endured would take time to heal, and they also knew that they had to create more time for her now. As they reached home, Kokoma felt a sense of safety she hadn't known in a long time. She was grateful not only for her freedom but for the lesson she had learned. Her curiosity, while sometimes a gift, could also lead her into dark places if she wasn't careful. Days turned into weeks, and gradually life began to feel normal again. Kokoma returned to her former school, surrounded by her friends and teachers who knew nothing of the ordeal she had faced. The events at St. Quinta's had changed her, but they had also awakened something powerful within her, a sense of purpose and a heart filled with empathy. She knew that she would face other challenges in life, but with her family by her side and her newfound strength, she was ready. This story teaches us that courage, faith, and love for others can overcome even the most terrifying challenges. Kokoma's bravery in speaking out and her parents' support in confronting the evil at St. Quinta's helped bring an end to the darkness in her school. It shows that even in the most frightening situations, we can find strength within ourselves. Kindness and helping others are powerful forces that can break the chains of suffering and bring peace. Never give up on what is good, even when it feels hard. No matter how dark or difficult life may seem, we are never alone when we have the love and protection of those who care about us. Thank you for watching this amazing video. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed creating it. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on the lessons you have learned, and let me know where you are watching from. See you in my next video. Bye.